This is episode 2 of the D6 generation with your hosts Craig Gallant, Russ Wakelin, and Rafe Hollywood Granger. Warning, the first few minutes of this podcast will be a poor attempt at parody. Listeners who are pregnant, nursing, have a heart condition, back problems, or a weak sense of humor should fast forward to the 5-minute mark in this episode. Should you attempt to listen to the intro, we can only wish you Godspeed.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at you with the speed of a mad minute. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are Russ Dakadad Wakelin and Rafe Call Me Hollywood Granger. Let's begin. Issue number 1, Alternative History Milieus. Games often break down into historicals or fantasy sci-fi. Some few games branch into that most niche of niche genres, alternative history. With Japanese mechs attacking U.S. Marines in the South Pacific, and the always popular evil magic-wielding Nazis against the stalwart purists of the Alliance, this twisting of real history seems to fill a hole in the spirits of geeks everywhere. Question. In a nation where half the high school students can't find the real Germany on a map of the world, does alternative history milieus do more damage than their fun quotient can justify? Rafe the Nafe Nazi Wraith!
I hate alternative history games. I don't like them at all.
That's not enough. Russ, no fuss, I no bus.
Well, you know what? It's funny about those. I mean, Tannhäuser, for example, is an alternative history game, and I broke that out.
The answer is we are 2 die rolls away from the apocalypse in America today, and finding Germany won't be that important 20 years from now anyway. Roll those bones and don't worry about those who attacked whom outside of where in the 19. Who cares? Topic number 2. There's a flood of Dragoon models in PP's latest expansion, War Machine Legends. Recently, the news that all War Machine factions will be getting Dragoon models with the newest release has people on both sides of the issue up in arms on the forums. Arguments of the unique nature of the Khador Dragoon versus the balance and blandness of everyone having them predominates. Question. Does the flood of new Dragoons take away from the flavor of Khador, and is the fear that more and more armies will have to field these cash-expensive cavalry units founded in reality? Rusty, I like horses, trigger trusty!
Excellent nickname today there, because I love horses. I say more cav is better.
Enough from you. Rafe, call me Hollywood, Dragoons are good!
Yeah, this really ticks me off. I want the only Dragoon.
Stop your whining!
Not fair.
There are only so many things to be done in the steampunk environment. Khador players will now face the ha-ha, you actually didn't kill me bellyache that has plagued everyone else for a year now. And cash is king, baby. Privateer Press is out to make money as much as the next big evil corporation. Expect the cost of playing war to increase in as many ways as Will Ferrell can find to sink his career. Topic number 3. You go, I go. WYSIWYG. D3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, etc. Gamers seem to find almost as much joy in acronyms and jargon as the military does. This stuff puts teens texting grammar to shame. It seems there isn't a concept out there that doesn't have a string of letters and numbers to designate it from the rest of the rules minutiae running rampant in the world. Question. Can't we all just use normal English to get our points across? R to the U to the S squared, meaning shared.
IMHO, no.
Succinct. Rafe the Nerf Herder word murderer.
Yeah, I think the Yu-Gi-Oh! Every time I see that, I think of the card game, and then Russ has to say to me,
Clearly
no,
you are confused. The answer is no, we cannot. On average, your run-of-the-mill gamer is more intelligent, if less socially aware, of his peers and is constantly seeking ways to convince everyone else of that fact. Inventive, shortcut language, code words, and complex acronyms are time-honored tools in the I'm smarter than you are battle of wills. So rotful, noob! Topic number 4. Recently, hit board game manufacturer Fantasy Flight Games released a joint press release with GW, announcing that almost all classic GW board games, as well as all card games and role-playing games, would now be handled, supported, and developed by Fantasy Flight. With many hit games currently on the market, including the fabulous Game of Thrones series, StarCraft, and Warcraft board games, a case could be made that we are entering a great new era for secondary GW properties. Question. Is this a smart move on the part of beleaguered GW, allowing them to focus on their core systems while veteran board game designers grow their market depth with new and exciting new titles in these favorite old universes? Or will this weaken their current hold on the market? Russ aflame to take aim on the board game.
I think it's an awesome move. Couldn't be better.
And random Rafe Snake Eyes for the reprise to the goodbyes.
Now this, I actually agree with Russ. This is a great move.
That's not very funny at all. You're both right, and you are both wrong. As Space Hulk and Blood Bowl, the best games are left out of the agreement. New properties can only dilute the market, but at the same time, many of these games will help keep Games Workshop alive. For topic number 5, we're actually going to take a moment and get a little more serious. The passing of game industry giant Gary Gygax. In a more serious vein, Gary Gygax, co-founder of TSR and Dungeons & Dragons, died yesterday morning after battling heart problems for years. Gary Gygax, a somewhat controversial figure in the gaming community due mainly to the confusion that swirled around the D&D property for years after his leaving the company, was still deeply involved in the gaming community and a legend among most true gaming geeks. Heralded as the father of tabletop role-playing games, and central to the introduction of dice based upon the 5 platonic solid shapes, Gygax never lost his love of gaming, as symbolized by this quote. I would like the world to remember me as the guy who really enjoyed playing games and sharing his knowledge and his fun pastimes with everybody else. There is no question here. I want you guys to share your thoughts for a second upon learning about the death of this man, a central figure to our hobby for decades. Rafe?
Yeah, that does make me feel sad inside, to be honest with you. I can remember seeing his names. As a matter of fact, I think I still have the old D&D books with his names on them. You know, I mean, that's where it all started for me, was the old Dungeons and Dragons. So that's very sad. Very sad.
I really think it's almost impossible to overstate the impact that Gary Gygax and Dungeons and Dragons has had on gaming as a whole. Not just the obvious idea of role-playing games and just creating that entire industry, but every computer game that has any kind of leveling system in it is almost can draw its roots directly to Dungeons and Dragons. Every dice-based game that doesn't use a D6, and even most dice-based games use stat lines, all of that fundamentally comes from Dungeons and Dragons, and that really just put an entire basis into an industry and put it a new way to think of gaming and games. And I think the industry lost a founding father, really, to any kind of game you play today.
I can't agree more. My feelings were a lot more emotional, like Rafe's. I remember that teal-colored Dungeons and Dragons box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, with the Gary Gygax's name right on it. I remember years of trying to figure out how to pronounce his name. There aren't any answers either, but it cannot be argued by anyone with a soul that Gary Gygax was a founding father of gaming in general worldwide. Whether you play D&D, War Machine, Warhammer 40,000, Halo, or Lord of the Rings MMORPG, we all owe him a moment of silence right now for his contribution and his spirit. So thank you, and good night.
You're listening to the D6 Generation. Thanks for the memories, Gary. Here's hoping your next character is straight 18s. Okay, it's time now for our new weekly segment, Achievements in Gaming. And this week, we want to talk about what we got done. It's a new segment. We want to talk about what we've done since the last podcast, really, and let you guys know what we're working on. So, Rafe, why don't you start? What have you been working on this past week or so?
All right. I finally got Stony the Dwarf and Lord of the Rings Online to level 31. It's a big achievement. All the people in my kin were making fun of me that my dwarf has now reached puberty. The other thing that I did was I actually, wait for it, made a character in WoW. Can you guys believe that?
Oh my God.
It really is the gateway drug.
I know. So I just wanted to see what, the whole population of Australia has to see in WoW. So that was pretty cool. And also finally got the chance to finally go down to my other favorite gaming palace of all times, which was Mohegan Sun. So I just got back from that little 2-day trip and got to play some craps.
How'd you do?
Made the donation to the Mohegan Sun again, but had fun. It's my version of a golf weekend is what I tell myself.
Now, sadly, you don't get any achievement points for either playing in WoW or gambling. We can't endorse either of those.
Come on. Level 31 for a dwarf, though. Give him one achievement.
All right, I'll give you that. There you go. Level 31.
All right. And you really chose your words carefully there, Russ, because in Lord of the Rings Online, which is one of the things I like about it, you do get titles and achievements. They don't call them that. They're called deeds and titles. Right. That's pretty cool.
So did you do anything other than MMOs and try to win money?
Gaming-wise or life-wise?
Well, gaming. We don't need your life story.
No. Well, yeah, I played Tannhäuser with you Sunday night.
Okay, excellent.
That was good.
All right, so
Yep.
Craig, how about yourself?
Okay, I had a big week. I was on vacation. I'm a school teacher. Started the vacation off great. I got really sick after our last podcast. I was down for the count for 3 days, then got bit by my own dog.
Yeah, you could hear all three of us pretty much coughing, gagging, and wheezing during that
Yeah,
podcast.
that was
the fact
pretty
that anybody made it to the end of that one is most impressive.
While I was down for the count and with a mangled hand, I did finish my entire Troll Blood army, which is over 50 models. I'm really
Sweet.
excited about that.
That's 2 achievements.
Yeah, see, there you go. I also put together and painted the Extreme Sculpt Dire Troll, which I'm using as my Earthborn, which is awesome, and I converted it to be carrying a big, huge Khador Jack fist in his hand for Wraith.
Fair.
And I just got to say, that looks awesome.
Thank you.
We're going to try to get some pictures of that thing up on our show notes here soon, because that is an amazing
I'm
model.
very, very happy with the way that model came out. And then I actually played 2 games, which is great for me. I am the accidental gamer. I paint and build stuff and then accidentally play a game every now and then. I played a game with our friend Chad, who played Crix, and he's basically about the same level I am, and I beat him. I think that deserves a...
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay.
right. I'll give you 2 for that.
Okay. And then I played our friend Ragnar Arneson, who is much, much, much better player than I am, and he crushed me, but I did play him and had a good time.
Excellent.
I think
Nice.
that gets another one.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, there you go.
Just for playing.
Okay.
That's the good effort
But
achievement.
it was a really big gaming week for me, or 2.
All right.
And you, Ross?
Well, I think the biggest achievement that all 3 of us did, Rafe Granger, Craig Gallant, and myself, we didn't even introduce ourselves this episode,
No, we didn't.
was that we actually got up the first episode of the D6 generation last time, which is like 3 achievements right there.
No, easily, yeah.
And not only that, but people actually listened to it, so we're pretty excited about that. And we're going to talk about...
And to all 10 of you, thank you.
That's right, all 10. And after we take out our parents, wives, and children, we get down to 2. But thank you very much. And we're actually going to go through and have a mailbag segment at the end of the show and talk about a lot of the feedback. We really appreciate that. So we'll do that a little later. As for other things, this past couple weeks, so one of the things I was pretty excited about was I did actually purchase Tannhäuser. We played it. We're doing a Tannhäuser review later in the show. That was a fun game. Also, got in a couple games of War Machine. Played Chris, actually beat Chris Flores, which for me, that's a huge achievement. And I actually beat Phineas, his new Warcaster, his pirate one.
Yeah.
So he's now switched over to Broadside Park. So that was the end of that.
Who I hear is brutal.
He is brutal. And also played Ragnar and lost to him, but we'll give the effort achievement for that. So Ragnar is one of our better wargaming players in general in our group, and he's always a good challenge to play.
Hey, Russ.
Yes.
When you said War Machine, did you mean War Machine?
No, actually, I played Hordes, but
Okay.
he, of course, was playing War Machine with his Mercs faction with some new pirate guys mixed in there.
I just wondered if you brought your Signar back out. That's all.
No, I haven't brought my Signar back out yet, although the new Signar Cav models got me excited. And the other news, I did get a little video gaming in. I finally finished Assassin's Creed, which I'm pretty excited about. That took me a while. For all you gamers of that, it's a fun game. And also, my wife and I finally got the big in Seattle achievement in Rock Band, which for anybody out there that plays Rock Band, getting big in one of the cities is extremely challenging because everybody has to be on hard, and you have to get through like an 8-song set, and some of the songs in there are like Cherub Rock and really tough songs. So that was pretty cool too. So that was fun as well. So that was my other off the table achievement, if you will.
Give yourself 2 achievements for that.
I'll take another one of those. So that was good fun too. So that was it for us. Any other achievements this week?
No, I'm all set.
All right.
Nope.
And now, what's in the news? The Games Workshop Classic Blood Bowl, currently being developed for the PC, Xbox 360, and handhelds, is getting closer. New screenshots were recently released, along with rumors of both turn-based and real-time play options. No word yet if Bugman's Ale has purchased any in-game advertising. Not to be outdone, another longtime GW favorite, Talisman, is scheduled to make its way to Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network within the next 3 to 4 months. It will feature 1 to 4 players, both local and online, 25 characters, a 3D game board, and the ability to download future expansions. We at D6G hope the Vision camera will be supported so we can see the look on our opponent's face as he gets to the center of the board, only to discover the void. And finally, with the writer's strike at an end, DC comic fans everywhere can rejoice that work has resumed on the live-action film Justice League of America. There is a lot of speculation surrounding the casting of the film, including whether or not Jessica Simpson will play the role of Jaina of the Wonder Twins. Oh, excuse me, something's coming across my earpiece. Right? No, seriously, I think she'd make a great Jaina. Her work as Daisy Duke was phenomenal and, yes? The Wonder Twins won't be in the film? Oh, that's just form of a disappointed announcer. Okay, so in our first episode, we discussed our exciting visit to TempleCon, and one of the things we did when we went to TempleCon was we got to try out a board game that both Craig and I were really looking forward to, Tannhäuser by Fantasy Flight Games. This game's a relatively recent release. I want to say it came out maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
No, it's been out for a while.
Oh, it's been longer than that?
Yeah.
Maybe last fall, I guess, maybe. So anyway, after the demo we had, which we talked a little bit about, I went out and picked the game up. I got the game, and I also got the initial expansion you can buy, which is, I think her name is Yuri. She's the one of the female characters for the game. And we got to play it a few times. I've played it like 6 times now. I think Craig has 6 battles, and Craig's played. We played 3 the first time, plus the intro was 4. Yeah. And then I played with Rafe on Sunday, which is 5. So maybe it's 5 times. But it's a fun game. Let's talk a little bit about this game in detail. Let's give it a little bit of a thorough once over here. So let's look at the box first and what you get in the game. What did you guys think about initially when you kind of looked at the game and got a chance to really look at the pieces and take a look at what comes in the box?
I think the quality of the pieces is amazing. All the card stock is really, really thick and glossy. The models all come pre-painted to a very high quality, I thought.
Yeah, I liked it too. I mean, it just is a pretty presenting box. The graphics on the box look really cool. It makes you definitely just want to have it just for, yeah, it's just the quality of it.
Really does. All the artwork is really amazing and very dark and sinister looking. The feel of the entire package is excellent.
So yeah, and so just to be clear, what comes in the box is you get in the core game, you get a double-sided board. The board's got very nice artwork on both sides. So on one side is sort of an underground, sort of outdoors adventure. On the other side is an indoor, sort of small building you fight in. And it's got the little circles on it where you move through, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And then also included in the box are 10 characters you play with. All of them are pre-painted, pretty nice-looking models. 5 of them are sort of the good guys, the allies, and 5 of them are the bad guys. And then each character has their own card. And as Craig said, they're really nicely done. They're glossy on one side. They're sort of bound on the other side too, so it's not just like cardboard with a print on it. It's actually nice and firm. Yeah. The game is a D10 system, and it comes with 10-sided dice, right? And it comes with 6 10-sided dice. It also comes with a nice full-color rule book. I'm actually looking at it right now, and the book has, I don't know about, it's more like booklet really. It's not bound as much as it is stapled, but the book is full color. It's probably about 50 pages maybe, something like that. And it's not that intimidating. There's maybe 15, 20 pages of rules actually, and then the rest of it is each character has 2 pages dedicated to them, with one page being background material and the other page being all the different ways you can load them out. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what's the background and fluff like? I mean, what's the game sort of like, and what do you think about the fact that it is, as we mentioned in the first segment of the show, it's an alternate history game, right?
I love the background. I'm a big fan of alternate history. Harry Turtledove is one of my favorite authors, and that's pretty much almost all he does nowadays. In the background, I think in episode 1A or B we talked a little bit about it, but basically you're fighting World War I, and it's never stopped. It's 1949, I believe, and the Germans, in an attempt to gain superiority over the Allies, have turned to the occult. And they have magic that works, and they've found ancient Egyptian talismans that work, and they've made pacts with demons. Various demons are named in the book, and they appear as sort of fluff characters in the background. Meanwhile, the Allies have got a technical advantage. They have guns that are far more powerful. They have much better training as their troops. And basically what you're doing is, as the Allies, you're trying to stop the Germans from finding new occult talismans or items of power. And as the Germans, you're looking for those items.
So, Rafe, what did you think of the background? Is it something you liked? I know you mentioned in the opening segment you're not really a big fan of alternative history. What did you think of this particular flavor?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of alternate history, but that doesn't stop me from playing the game. I still really enjoyed playing the game. I want to talk about the playability. That's what I like the most about it.
Well, just to finalize on the alternate history part, what I really liked about how they present the background. I mean, I definitely like it's got that little Indiana Jones feel where it's sort of realistic, but yet there's this magic stuff that really exists and works. And what also is the neat thing is how they present the background. They don't just flop it in the book and say here's the history. There's like a little letter in the front from actually General Patton, actually signed by Patton, and it describes the operation. So Operation Tannhäuser is a very specific operation in the game world where the Germans are going in to take out, kind of open up this demon gate or something, and this super elite American or Union force is going in with the highest tech weapons. And in the back of the book, there's another letter from a scientist trying to explain why the high-tech weapons exist, and the reason the Allies have the advantage is because the Roswell crash actually happened. And so they're mining new technology from alien spacecraft while the Germans are over there like getting in with the demons. So you got basically UFO technology against demons. So it's a really kind of interesting thing. And as each supplement comes out, like even just the little Yuri thing in the initial book, there's no magic spells with the Allies. But in this first expansion comes along this one ability for this one Union character, and she's a Native American, and she's a Navajo. So now, and she's got this new spell based on Native American sort of Navajo culture. So now they're starting bringing in this whole idea that there's that kind of stuff going on in the universe too.
Good magic and bad magic.
Yeah, so as the game progresses more and more, and there's hints in the back of the book of maybe a Russian faction coming out. So there's a lot of expansion, and it's a really very fascinating universe. So that part is really, really exciting. So to go on with Rafe, let's talk a little bit about the mechanics. And one of the things that was, I think, really that they tout in the game, in fact, it's got a little logo on the front, is they had this interesting concept called the Pathfinding System. So let's talk a little about that.
Okay.
Basically, well, Rafe, what do you think about it? You want to get into the
I like that. Yeah, it has these. So for our listeners, it has these circles. And if anybody ever played the Star Wars collectible miniature, collectible miniature game with the same kind of board miniatures, you never really knew, could you see around this corner or could you see through this door? Well, Tannhäuser solves that. So your miniature is standing on an orange circle and it can shoot and fire its weapon, except for some restrictions, which I'll let Russ get into, or Craig. If it's on an orange circle, if your opponent's on an orange circle, you can see and hit the person. And I like that. And I also like how the range is, except for minimum ranges, which we'll get into, I like how the range is infinite for most things. So that, to me, I thought was really cool, the pathfinding. I still want to talk about playability, but we're on pathfinding.
So if you think about, I think pathfinding is hard to describe without looking at the board, but basically the idea is this. Imagine the giant capital T, letter T in your head. And so the top of the T is one corridor, right? And the bottom of the T is the other corridor. So imagine down the top of the T is a bunch of red circles going on the top, and then down the center of the T is a bunch of blue circles. If you're standing on a blue circle, you can only shoot guys on blue circles. If you're standing on a red circle, you can only shoot guys on a red circle. But that one circle that's at the junction of where the vertical part of the T and the horizontal part of the T meet, that circle is half blue and half red. So if you're standing on that circle, you can shoot guys either in blue or in red. That's a very simple example of how they did it. But they also factor in things like lighting effects and everything else into it so that basically, but all you got to worry about is, am I on the same color as the guy I'm trying to shoot? And if so, I can basically shoot him. What do you think of that?
I love the concept. The infinite range is misleading, however, because there's not a lot of open space.
Yeah.
On the mansion board, there are a few hallways that after you play the game once or twice, you realize, okay, you've got to get your heavy weapon to one end of that hallway or you're going to be hosed. But mainly, I think the only negative aspect of that is that there are so many different paths that you're starting to deal with so many different shades of colors that it does get a little confusing if the lighting isn't perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, you do it. The two issues I have with the system, and I like the Pathfinding system a lot. I think it solves more problems than it creates, but there are two little nuances to it. The first one is, as Craig points out, there are some places where there's different shades of blue, and it's not always clear where they start and stop. And the other area is that what defines an adjacent circle, right? Sometimes the way they go around, you really got to look at the board very carefully to see if that circle is really adjacent to another circle, or because it's not a straight up grid like in Star Wars, as Rafe mentioned. It's actually little spaced out circles, and that's pretty clear in most places, but there's a couple spots. But again, with a little bit of replay over and over again, you and your friends will come up with which you all interpret as the circles that are adjacent and the colors that are the same. But that's
unless it's our gaming group, and then you'll argue ad nauseum about things like that.
Yeah, actually,
that's another show.
That didn't come up, actually, believe it or not. But there's some other things came up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's the pathfinding system. Let's talk a little bit about playability in general, and then I'll maybe get into some of the specifics of how other parts work. So, Rafe, what did you feel overall about how playable the game is and how fun it was?
All right. This is what I love. I am like Russ. I love board games too, but I hate board games that take either hours to figure out to play, or you have to play 5 games with your friends before on the 6th game you really know what you're doing. So to me, what was fun about this game is after about a 15-minute presentation at TempleCon, we all played the game and had a good time. And that to me is what makes a board game. Because I don't have time anymore to invest 5 10-hour games. You know, like kind of playing oh shoot, I can't think of it. Like Civilization. No, that's the wrong thing. There's a board game out there that takes hours and hours and hours to play, but I can't think of it right now.
Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, games like that.
There's many more too, right?
Yeah, but that one's the famous one.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. So that's what I like. You open the box, you talk to your friends for 15 minutes, and you're playing the game, and that's what I love about it.
I agree. I think it's very intuitive. Most of the rules are relatively easy to pick up on. I like the fact that it's not, I do everything, and if I do it right and I roll well, your guy dies. You get an opportunity to try to dodge or to shake off the damage. So there's an interaction there between the players, the shooter and the shootee, if you will, or the attacker and the defender, where you feel like you're playing whether you're defending or attacking rather than just waiting to see if somebody kills your guy.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about exactly how some of that, how you kill the guy stuff works. And I think you're both right. I think the game, I agree totally with what you said. The game plays fast. In fact, the longest part of the game really is setup. And it's not complicated setup because you got to set up this complicated board. It's because there are many options with your character. And so when you get other, you don't just play this stock character. You play a stock character that's got options for what gear they can take. And so what ends up happening is if you have more than 2 players playing, or even if you do have 2 players, you want to go through the book and figure out all your options and figure out what you can use. And that part takes a little while. But the actual gunplay, once the game gets started, people are dying like that, and it's just over. And so it's a lot of fun. And my favorite part about board games in general, and the reason I turn to board games sometimes instead of just staying on the miniature table, is I like the social aspect of being able to have more of the head-to-head play. It heads-up play, I really prefer a game like 40K or War Machine or Flames of War, where you're one-on-one and a really in-depth rule set. But when you want to just hang out with a bunch of friends and all go around the same table and do something, I think board games really, that's where they shine. And what's fun about this game is it's really designed as a 2-player experience. That is, there's 2 sides, but you can have the 10 players play at once. You just give everybody a card and go, and that really makes it a lot of fun. And so what they did with some of these, what basically you have a character, and each character sheet has 4 slots on it for basically gear they can carry. And the different gear does different things to augment your basic abilities, right? So the first thing you do is pick that gear, and the gear ranges from different kinds of weapons, from machine guns to grenades to special goggles to whips, right? And to knives. And from that to like, some of the gear is actually like medals of honor that give your character special abilities or psychic powers. Like one of the characters can actually take control of your guy and make him move the wrong direction.
Smoke grenades are great.
Smoke grenades, which when you throw them on the ground, all the circles of that color basically become really hard to see through and fight in. Real grenades, TNT, so all kinds of wacky stuff that your characters can carry around and do things with, right?
Yeah.
And so and there's these pre-made packs that you can design how to build your character, which equipment they're going to have for it.
You mean like a loadout, you mean?
Exactly. Like there's
each
like
one has 3 choices, 3
Right.
loadout choices.
And each character comes with like a piece of gear that's like super theirs, and then there's 3 pieces you can choose. But the way they did it was there's little tokens for all this gear, and the tokens on one set of pictures of the character, so you can't really confuse and put the wrong war gear, or I shouldn't say war gear, but the wrong equipment on the wrong character, right? Because the picture with your guy on it is the gear for your particular character.
Yeah.
And the combat system is very straightforward, but uses some mechanics I really like. Each character has different stats. And what's kind of neat about this too is they have stat rows going along their data sheets, right? So there's one row with numbers for their combat value, their stamina, their speed, right, and mental ability. And then there's a little dial that you put on your card that mark what row you're in. And so when you start off healthy, you're in the first row, and as you take damage, you go down to lower and lower rows in your sheet until finally you take the last bit of damage. You have no more rows left. And what this does is, as your character gets wounded, his or her statistics change. They might start moving slower, but in some cases, especially with the Union, some of their statistics, like their mental abilities,
That's it.
get better.
It gets better.
Yeah.
They get more determined to succeed when they get wounded.
So that's kind of an interesting mechanic. And basically how it works is your abilities go against your opponent's abilities to succeed. So, for example, it uses a success system, which is similar to, we've seen this in other game systems. I think Inquisitor uses it and some other game systems use it, where your ability, like combat ability, is maybe level 5. So that means you get to roll 5 dice, and the number I need to get on those dice is the number of my opponent's combat ability. So I compare my combat ability to my opponent's. My number is how many dice I get to roll. His or her number is the number of the dice I need to get a success with. So if I roll my dice and my opponent's combat ability is a 6 and mine is a 5, I roll 5 dice. Every 6 or better I get is a hit. And then my opponent gets a similar roll with his stamina to try to absorb those hits and not take actual physical damage. What I like about those kind of mechanics, I do enjoy games where the mechanic required to hit somebody is, what I'm trying to say is that I like a game where the guy you're trying to shoot's skill makes it harder for you to hit him. That's what I was trying to say. And
Very succinctly put.
Not so succinctly put.
Yes, that was nice.
Yes, thank you very much. So that's what I enjoy about that. It has that in there. So all the different abilities, whether it's a mental attack to get your guy to move when he doesn't want to, or a physical attack, your skills also augment the ability for your opponent to succeed in that action.
Hey, Craig.
Yes.
You know what I was thinking when Russ was rambling on towards the end there?
What you had for dinner?
No, I had Chinese pie. It was very good. And
Oh, yeah,
salad.
it's one of my favorites. Comfort food right there.
But that's not what I was thinking.
Okay.
What I was thinking is I like Russ's moniker to these games, which is beer and pretzels. It's like a beer and pretzel game, right? The social thing.
Absolutely. Tannhäuser's right on the edge of beer and pretzels versus serious gaming.
I know, but you know what
but
I was thinking? I've never seen Russ have a beer.
He doesn't have a beer. In
Eats
fact,
the pretzels.
I'm looking right now at the closest he gets, a Diet A&W.
But the word beer does appear on the can.
It does indeed.
I like to point that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and Russ
that's
is
just
very
what I was
susceptible to endorphins. So when people around him are drinking beer, he does start to act as if he was drinking beer.
So
I noticed
anyway, there's this board game we were playing called Tannhäuser.
Good try, Russ.
So anyway, so that's the basic mechanics of how you do stuff. And all weapons really do, right, is they augment those stats. So sometimes they increase your stats, they have pluses to the dice, things like that.
All right.
Yep.
Good.
And the other mechanic you guys alluded to is the minimum range thing. So Craig, how does the minimum range thing factor in?
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Well, there's each type of weapon has a category. There's hand-to-hand weapons, which you need to be adjacent to, unless it's the woman with the whip. Then there's close combat weapons, which is a pistol. The minimum distance for a pistol is you have to be at least one empty circle away from your target. But then, as long as you're in the same color path, you can be as far away as you can get. And then there's machine guns, which have to be 2 rifles, and machine guns have to have 2 empty spaces away to maneuver the gun and aim it. And then the heavy weapon, which right now there's only 1, which is just a humongous wannabe heavy bolter it's an awesome looking model. And that needs to be a minimum of 3 squares away, which is not easy to do on a board where quite often your color fields are only 5 or 6 circles long. So it's a really interesting and neat mechanic, and kind of builds in the whole concept of you're in a confined space, so there's really no need to worry about the maximum range of a weapon.
And what I liked about it, back to my playability thing, is, there's not a lot of counting for those minimum ranges and things like that. So it's not like your opponent's taking 15 minutes to count out these circles. It's pretty intuitive on the board. And for those video gamers out there, 360, it kind of reminds me of playing a World War II Rainbow Six. And so there's smoke grenades, there's goggles, and it's just playable. I like it.
Right. And the minimum range thing is kind of an interesting mechanic, because you get you in these weird situations where I made the mistake against Rafe in my game against him on Sunday. I wanted to have all my guys with machine guns, so I picked loadouts where nobody had any pistols. And then I realized very quickly that when my opponent gets close to me, I am totally out of luck, because they can get all within the minimum distance of those things, and I have no pistols to hurt them back. And
right.
It added some interesting things too. There's actually rooms on the maps where you can't. If you're in that room, it's so small, there's no way to even throw a grenade at them. The minimum distance for a grenade is also 3. So you you can hide in the shadows. I don't dare enter there because there's a hand-to-hand combat monster, but he pops out, kills somebody, and jumps back into the shadows again because you can do these little interactive things. And so that makes it a lot of fun, too.
Russ, what do you think about the expansions?
Well, we only have one right now. Actually, there's 2 expansions, right? There's one for a guy called Wolf, and he helps out the Americans, but unfortunately here in the States, that expansion was only available with a special pre-order deal, so you can't get him unless you pre-order the game back in the day, and I think Fantasy Fight's trying to fix that, but that's the problem. The other one is Yuri, which is, I think her name is Yuri, that's the one I have now. I like the expansion. It adds a little scenario you can play.
What are they? They come in a little box, you get extra game tiles?
They come in a little box, and you get the female, you get the model, you get another card for them that's just as high quality as the cards for the other characters that come with it. You get all the tokens for their gear, you get a little booklet that describes their gear, and then you get and the booklet includes a scenario also.
You get additional tokens for other characters that are completely unaffiliated with her too, so it's got little extra bonuses for the whole game and knocks the whole thing up a little bit.
And a couple of the basic mechanics I just realized we didn't cover really, which is basically that the game is alternating turn sequence, right? So I move a guy and then you move a guy.
Yeah.
And what makes the game play so fast again is there's not that much you can do. You move, you shoot. The only other thing you can really do is when you're moving, you can interrupt your action to do something. So you can move 2 circles, shoot somebody, then fall back 2 circles. And what makes the game really interesting is when you play, it almost plays faster with more players. And the reason I say that is when I played with Rafe one-on-one, what I found was we were constantly looking up what all of our war gear, our various gear did. So I'd be looking in the book.
Because we had five miniatures aside, right?
We each had 5 guys to keep track of. But when you're playing, we played 8-on-8 that one Tuesday. Yeah. Well, everybody pretty much memorizes what their guys got. So you do have a little bit of that, tactics by committee that happens with multiplayer games, right? When you got 4 guys over there trying to decide the best course of action for each player. But in the end, there's not that many options you can do, so it doesn't really get too nasty. And really, because someone will go, oh, I remember my guys got the snow grenade, I'll run in there and do that. That sort of helps speed the game up, so that makes it play a little better.
Yeah. And one mistake can kill you.
Oh, yeah. Wrong room, you're dead.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. So they can pick up and play the game again. And the other thing we should mention, too, before we go on to some of the other things here, is there are 4 different ways you can play the game, right?
Yeah.
There's the basic, what they call the story mode, which is what we played at the demo.
Yeah.
And this has objectives where people have to have certain skills to do the objective, and then you get victory points, and whoever has the most victory points at the end wins. The next mode is a deathmatch mode, which we actually played this wrong. It's all about killing people.
That's what I thought.
Points. So that one you just run around. There's crates on the table. You can open the crates and find new gear. It's very much like a video game. You just run around and kill each other. We should also say there is respawning in this game. Certain characters can come back and fight again.
The grunts. You've got named characters, and then you have grunts.
And then lastly, you have we have 2 more modes. There's capture the flag, which is what it sounds like. There's no flag markers. You got to get back to your extraction point there. And the last option is a domination mode, which people who play video games will also be familiar with. There's markers on the table. You got to get there. You stay there long enough. It flips to your side. You got to hold that one while grabbing all the other domination points on the table. So there's a lot of variety there. That coupled with the scenarios that come in the book and all the different ways you can load out your characters, I think there's a lot of replayability in the game.
I do think there's a lot of variability, and it can be a different game all the time, and the 4 different modes make it a lot more interesting. I think the victory points. Yes. I like it. It's very confusing because it's what I call the Quidditch rule, which there are 2 objectives, and when the second objective has been solved, the game ends immediately. But you don't win if you are the one who solved the second objective. You have to actually calculate victory points after you've finished the game. So you could conceivably do both of your objectives, and because of other things that happened over the course of the game, still lose. Not unlike finding the golden snitch and not having enough points to overcome the deficit when you did.
That's right. And what makes that really nasty is that victory points can also be used during the game to do certain things. Like, right, you can spend a victory point to basically return fire, which sort of like gives you Overwatch in the game. For our old 40K fans, don't know what that means. You can basically fire at an opponent during his turn. You can also spend victory points to heal. You can spend victory points for extra movement. But the downside to that is if you're spending those victory points doing that, if you're in a game where victory points are part of the mission objective, it's a real tough call on whether you spend those victory points or not. So that's an added little thing too. So let's talk a little bit about the rules quality. We went over what the intent of the rules are. How do we feel the wording was and everything else? Like, Rafe, you had a couple fun games. You didn't get any rules arguments. What did you feel from that angle?
Oh, I liked it. I think as long as my opponents are the type that are just more in the beer and pretzel mind, I'll play the game. I don't want to play it at the kind of the competitive level or the, looking up rule FAQs or anything like that. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on it. So I don't know. To me, when I played with you and Craig and the gentleman there at TempleCon, I thought it was great fun.
I agree. As a beer and pretzels game, I think it's great. I think when you start playing with people who take it more seriously, there are areas of the book that are a little fuzzy, and we did in fact get into a bit of an altercation on Tuesday where there's a specific rule. The wording is something like, when you use this gun, the firer gets a bonus. And we got into an argument over whether you were the firer all the time or whether you were only the firer when you were firing. And it got to the point where Russ, who can be very eloquent, not that you'd know it from this particular sample, but actually argued me around and convinced me that I was wrong. And then, as it turned out, I wasn't wrong after all.
No, you're right.
But yeah. there are some, I would say for the most part, very well written. I really like it. It's very tight, but there are some areas where if you want to have a fight, you can figure it out.
Yeah, I think that was one of the concerns. I think when we came back from TempleCon, we thought that might be the case. Yeah. And the game is translated from French. There's already a very long, not super long, but a page and a half FAQ from Fantasy Flight about it. So they are supporting it and trying to support that. But yeah, there's definitely some rules that are a little bit fuzzy. I think our gaming group has some. I'm just one of the big offenders. I can't hide behind anything. I'm one of those people that once we get going on a rules debate, I'm like a pit bull. I won't let it go. So we get into those and we dissect these things, rip apart, and sometimes that takes some of the fun out of a room.
It got really tense at one point.
So yeah, that didn't work out too well. But I think it's 1 or 2 playthroughs, your group will come up with what they think is the right way to play it. And as far as supporting the rules, one of the forums after that posted it, got 4 or 5 really good responses on them. There was some actual debate about the one rule on the forum, so we don't feel like total idiots. Like, it isn't obvious. No. But a couple of the guys in France who sounds like play it regularly, they may even work for them, I'm not really sure, but they gave us some good responses, and so I think we have a good idea how it should be ruled in the future.
And the consensus seems to be that you get the bonus only when you're actually firing, for those of you following along at home.
Craig was right.
Okay. Or currently, who knows? So, the situation is fluid.
So what are our recommendations? Rafe, what do you think? Would you recommend to check this game out or buy it?
Yep. I think any video gamer who, again, likes games like Rainbow Six and likes board games would like this game. And the only recommendation I have, which I'm sure you guys have, is they should have multiple booklets or make the photocopies of the booklets.
Absolutely.
So you have the loadouts.
Yeah. The only choke point in this game where things slow down is that you need the rule book to set up your character. So if you have 10 people playing the game, you're either reading over each other's shoulders, which is actually, you can't do that because it's 2 pages. It's a centerfold each, I guess, is one way to look at it. And so you've got to wait until the next guy's finished and all the information you need is in the same book. So I would say some photocopies might be in order or some sort of summary or something like that. But I really enjoy it. I have to second what Rafe said. I think it's a great mix of the playability of a video game and the fun and sociability of a board game.
Yep, I think I'd agree with all of that. And the only nice thing with the one fix for the rulebook is the one great thing about Fantasy Flight, all their rulebooks are available in PDF format on their website. So it's just a matter of popping over there and printing the thing out. But that's a good point. I think that would be very helpful because that is one of the downsides. I think the game, though, if you're looking for a game that's fast, that's fun, that everybody can pick up and jump into, and a game, especially when you have a lot of people in one room and those games where there are 5 players and 6 players, but you got 7, this is the game that can handle any number. If you got an odd number of players, just give someone 2 characters. If his guy dies, pass over to the second guy. It's a great game for just pick up and go.
Yeah. You can't play it with one person, though.
So Tannhäuser, 3 thumbs up.
3 thumbs way up.
3 thumbs up.
You're listening to the D6 generation. We try not to suck. How we do it?
I am Rafe Hollywood Granger, and this is the Hollywood Minute. So Russ and Craig were kind enough to give me a minute to talk about whatever I wanted to talk about. Now, I wanted to talk about have a whole show, but they gave me 1 minute. So they think I'm going to talk about Lord of the Rings online, but I'm not. Today's topic is that I want to talk about that I'm a gamer and proud of it. I mean, I can remember the time when I would sort of be, the gamer hide in the closet. Like my neighbor would come over from next door. I might have my painting table out, and I would quickly jump away from the table to not have to explain myself. Because inevitably it would always end up with explanations of, oh, what are you doing? And I'd respond, painting miniatures. They would say, oh, for what, Dungeons and Dragons? And have that look in their eye like I'm going to wear chainmail and run around waving a sword. But what I'd like to say is today's day and age, I don't think we gamers have to hide it anymore. It's a valid hobby. It's more mainstream. You're seeing TV shows with people playing Xboxes 360. There's even a TV show, What About Brian, that the two characters on the show there. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had to watch that one with my wife. But there are two characters on there that, ran a game company. And so that's my topic for today. Wave your gamer flag. Run around proud, no longer have to hide it, proud to be a gamer. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Good night, all.
Okay, I'm going to roll to hit. Oh, crap, it's off the table. Did you see where it went? I think it's over by your foot. No, your other foot to the left. Oh, now you've kicked it. Can you wait? So a little help here, please. Another segment we'd like to introduce in episode 2 is our off-the-table segment. In episode 1, we did a lot of detailed analysis of wargaming, and that's great, but sometimes it's fun to take a break from miniature wargaming and see what other great ways you can spend your time and, quite frankly, waste it, to be honest. So, this episode I'd like to talk a little bit about some video games, and two of my video games I'd like to talk about are ones that might be of a lot of interest to fellow wargamers out there. And I'd like to talk to you about a classic, a one that many of you have heard of before, and then also introduce a new one that you may not have heard about yet, and it's also worth taking a look at. The first one I want to talk about is Dawn of War. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of Dawn of War. Dawn of War is based on, of course, Warhammer 40,000, and in episode 1 we took a lot of time kind of, really taking GW to task with some of our concerns about the way they've been handling Warhammer 40K, but we also mentioned how much we love the universe. And Dawn of War is a great way to get back into that universe. And why am I bringing up Dawn of War now, since it's kind of an old game? Well, as you may or may not know, Soulstorm, which is the latest expansion for the game and rumored to be the final expansion of this version of the game, just came out this week, I believe. And it features the Sisters of Battle as well as the Dark Eldar. And that brings the game's total number of races to 9. And those of you not familiar with Dawn of War, let me give you a little background. It's a real-time strategy game. So it's, you got to move your guys around with a mouse and click where you want them to go. And the game has been around for quite some time now and has been through 4 expansions. The original game, Dawn of War, came with the Orcs, the Space Marines, the Eldar, and Chaos. Later they added Winter Assault, which added the Imperial Guard. Then came Dark Crusade, which added the Tau, the Necrons, and the ability to play on this really cool sort of Risk-style campaign map. And finally, the new release of Soulstorm, which not only brings the 2 new races I mentioned earlier, but also an interplanetary campaign and adds flyers to all the races. What's kind of interesting about how the expansions actually work is that if you have just buy Soulstorm, you can play the full campaign and you can play online with other players, but you can only play Sisters of Battle or Dark Eldar yourself, although you could still play against Tau online. If you want to play Tau, you'd have to have the prior game, Dark Crusade. If you want to play Imperial Guard, you have the Winter Assault. So if you kind of think of the games as codexes, and you have to own one of the games to be able to play that army, that's how it works. And the basic game mechanics of Dawn of War, as we mentioned, are RTS, but there's minimal resource management in it. If you've never tried the game out, it's a little different than StarCraft or Warcraft or some of the other RTSs you might have tried out before. And in addition to not really worrying about resources, all you really worry about is capturing certain command points on the table. You also don't work with single models like you do in those games. In this game, you work with units. And Dawn of War was really one of the games that pioneered this concept of working with a whole unit instead of individual models. And it gives you that much more 40K feel of squad-based combat as opposed to singleton combat. So when you click on your troop generating unit, and the game's really neat, when you want to build a building for Space Marines, drop parts come out of the sky and the things land on the ground. and you want to summon a Space Marine squad, they show up and have their little line about, praise the Emperor, or my faith is my shield, and they show up with 4 guys, or 5-man squad, and all they got is bolters. And then you can click on that squad, and you can increase the squad size up to a 10-man squad. And then later, as you get more technology built with buildings, you can then click on that squad and give them a las cannon or a heavy bolter, or upgrade one of the guys to the veteran sergeant and give him war gear. So it really feels like you're dealing with a 40K unit, and you can actually expand those units as you go. Another nice thing about how combat works is terrain is also involved in the game. So if you put your squad in a crater, they'll get a little icon next to them that tells you they have improved defense. So again, you get that feeling of sort of 40K-ish with the terrain and the elements. And also, there's a lot of, in addition to the squads, there's some really nice vehicles in there. The Land Raiders drove around. You have, your jump troops. You have your Rhino tanks. You have your Predator Annihilers. Of course, you have your Dreadnoughts. That's just the Marines. Every race has all their vehicles. The Falcons exist for the Eldar. Everything you'd expect for the game from the 40K universe is in the game at some point. And it really gives you, the gameplay really lends to that, giving that visceral feel of 40K. So if you missed that universe, you haven't played the game in a while, you don't have a lot of 40K players in your area, or you're like sort of some of the members of the D6G crew here, where we've just kind of, become a little disenfranchised of the rule set and moved on, but you still got to get that 40K flavor. This is really one of the great ways to do it. The intro movies are wonderful, and if you've never seen the intro movie to the original Dawn of War game, you're really missing out. It's one of the best bits of CGI I've ever seen done for the 40K universe, bar none. You definitely want to check that out. You can certainly go to YouTube and find it, but I would recommend watching the full screen on your computer. The voice acting is really actually very well done. And the one lines, just like clicking on the unit and hearing them talk about their respective things, the Dark Eldar hunger for souls, the Necrons have little mumbly noises, the Tau have that honor thing going on, the Space Marines, have the various praises of the Emperor along the Imperial Guard, not worrying about dying. It's just really great, and everything you'd expect there, and all the little quotes in the bottom of the 40K rulebook are in the game someplace. And another great thing is it got the really nice special kill moves in there. So when the models start fighting, not only do you get to see grenades fly and the models fall to the ground and then jump up, but also you can actually see if a Dreadnought grabs an Orc, you'll see him pick him up with the power cost, spin him around, and kill him. And there's certain, they've got pre-scripted sort of animated kill scenes when certain models fight other certain models to add some drama to the game. And also, I should point out, it's one of the few RTSs that actually has morale as well. Your squads will start to get concerned, even if they're not dying in a bad situation. You'll see their morale go down, and their combat effectiveness gets worse, and you got to make the call: do you want to pull them out or not? Which is kind of neat. Gives you that other feel of 40K with breaking. And to add to the feel of it actually being based on the 40K, miniature wargaming ability, it's one of the only RTSs that I know of that lets you actually paint and color your own army, essentially. There's actually a unit editor, and for any of the 9 armies, you can bring up in the unit editor, and you can change all the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. And you can even add banners and icons, and if you're really a computer, fanatic, you can go in and find the right directory and put your own icons in there and come up with your own banners and symbols as well. So you can really get a nice look for your force. And in the original Dawn of War, you could only bring your customized army into online play and kind of show off your super pink fuchsia Chaos Space Marines if you wanted to or whatever. But in the later versions of the game where they had the battle maps and single player game had these long ongoing sagas, you can also bring your customized army in that as well. So again, that gives you the feel of it actually being, gives you that personalization feel that really is what's so enjoyable playing miniature wargaming. And the game has got a lot of replayability. When you think about the fact there's 9 races, and now with this expansion adding on, there's over 100 different multiplayer maps. You can play with your friends, and now the more common technology of voice chat, RTSs online are a lot more fun. And there's, of course, 4 campaigns now. There's the 2 traditional ones from the Winter Guard and the original Dawn of War game, where there's a very distinct story to the game. And in the later 2 games, there's some really interesting cutscenes basically between a bunch of the large map-based campaigns or universe campaign in the new one. But there's a lot to do with this game, and there's a lot of depth to it. And really, the great thing about it is that it's an old game. I mean, you're thinking, why is that a good deal? Well, the graphics, of course, they do look a little dated now. The game's been around a while, but the good news is the older games are in the bargain bin. You can grab those things easily. There's demos for them all over the place. And even if it's not a local retailer near you, a couple of the online services where you can direct to drive and download these things and buy them online are there too. So you can find this game just about anywhere now. And it's got some great, and because it is older, it'll run on just about any PC. If you've got an average PC today, it'll run this game no problem. You don't have to worry about getting a new graphics card to run the game. It's very, as I said, it's very affordable, and the new game's not that bad either. So really, about the price of a codex, you can pick up one of, 2 or 3 races to play in the game. And of course, the best part is the demos are available. So download the demo, give it a try, and check out Dawn of War if you haven't already. And if you have played it a long time ago and haven't been back to the game system, download the Soulstorm demo and give it a whirl. The Dark Eldar are a lot of fun to play, and it's fun to watch those little raiders fly around. You can load them with your guys and watch them all fire their dark lances from the back of the raider. Good fun. Highly recommend it. Now, the other game I'd like to recommend, this is a brand new game, just came out on Xbox Live, and it's called Commander's Attack of Genos. And as a board game player and as a miniature wargaming player, I really enjoy turn-based games a lot. I mean, we just talked about Dawn of War being the real-time strategy game, and those are fun, but you get to this situation where you got to click really fast and move really around and get going really quickly, and that's got its own place. But there's nothing better than a nice turn-based game to go nice and slow and really think through each move. And Commander's Attack of Genos is really the latest in that kind of a line. And just to give you a feel, if you're familiar with these kind of games before, XCOM is a great example of this kind of game. Laser Squad Nemesis is another classic that's still around online, and a really kind of a hit game recently on some of the handhelds is Advanced Wars. And Attack of Genos doesn't bring a lot new to the party. It does many of those things those other games do, but it does it very well and with a very clean look. What's really nice is it's got a great art sort of look to it. It's got sort of this retro Flash Gordon sort of 1930s future going on, which is kind of fun and unique. There are 2 races in the game. There's a humans and sort of the genetically engineered, the classic genetically engineered humans gone awry kind of race you got to fight. But even despite only being 2 races, there is a lot of depth to the game. Each side has quite a variety of units. There's several different types of infantry, tanks, transports, scouts, and aircraft. And what's nice about it, again, it is turn-based. So what you do is you click on a unit. You don't see the grid on the map, but the map's basically designed into a grid, and you click where you want them to go, and you have a certain number of action points, and that can be either used for attacking or moving. So if you move less, you can probably get 2 attacks in a turn. If you move your full speed, you can't attack at all. And you go through each turn. It's you go, I go. So I move all my models on the table, and then you move all your models on the table, make your attacks. The terrain is in there, so when you put a guy in a hill or whatever, there's nice little icons that show you what kind of benefits he's getting. There's fog of war, line of sight's all worked out, so all the basic factors of a good war game are in there. And you can control buildings and units and use those buildings to build new units. So there's a little bit of resource management. You don't worry about mining or anything like that in StarCraft, but if you own a building and do some damage, the more sort of damage you do to the enemy, the more resources you get to build more stuff. What makes the game a little bit unique are the commanders portion of the game. So even though there's only 2 sides, there are quite a few commanders you can choose from. I think there's 4 per side. And these commanders add a lot of depth to the game because what they do is they kind of remind me of the warlocks and warcasters from War Machine in that the different commander you choose really influences how you're going to play. And that's because each commander has a passive ability and an active ability. And their passive ability, the commanders simply influence the units near them, but different commanders influence different units. So, for example, one commander might make all tanks near him have a longer range, while another commander might make infantry have a better defense near him. So if you're playing the infantry commander, of course, you're going to want to build a more infantry-centric army, and it's going to reflect your playstyle. If you are going to play the tank commander, of course, you're going to want to have more tanks. In addition to that passive ability, the commanders also have this ability they can use once in a while, and it kind of likens to me the feat mechanic in War Machine, and that is that each commander can activate the super ability that sort of recharges over time as you do more damage to the enemy. And so one of these super abilities, for example, is that your commander can fire all his guns at every enemy in range without spending any action points. Another commander can do this thing like popping his feet, and all of a sudden he's surrounded by a bunch of new infantry units. So it really gives you this little sort of surprise to your enemy. And again, the different commanders you play is going to influence what kind of abilities you can bring out. Excuse me. So there's so that's pretty much how the game plays. There's 15 single player missions, and which gives you a little bit of depth. And there's you can play 1 to 4 players either on live over Xbox Live, or you can play what's called the hot seat mode, which is kind of nice. And you remember this, old school gamers remember this, where one player, if you're local on your own Xbox, one player makes his turn, the other player looks away, and then when he's done, he hands the controller back to the other guy, and he looks at the screen. And that's because of all the fog of war and everything. He can't both watch on the screen at the same time with a split screen mode. But that's actually kind of a handy tool for all you parents out there. If you're hanging out with one of your friends and you're watching your kids, one of you can watch the kids, or the other one takes his turn, and the other one can switch off, kind of thing, which is kind of fun. So it's a good fun game. And the best part about it, it's an Xbox Live title. So what does that mean? It's cheap. The game is $10. And better than that, all Xbox Live games have a demo you can try out first. So if you've got an Xbox, even if you don't have a gold account, just have a silver account, you can still download the game for free and check it out. Highly recommend it. Commanders, Attack of Genos. It's not going to be a mega seller, but for wargamers like us, it's a nice little gem that's worth a look. We interrupt this program to bring you breaking news. This just in. To follow up with their recent press release, Fantasy Flight Games has released an FAQ answering some of the questions about their recent deal to publish Games Workshop board and card games. While you could head on over to fantasyflightgames.com and read the details for yourself, we here at D6G know your time is valuable, despite the fact you're listening to this podcast. So here are some summaries of the important questions. Will Fantasy Flight publish all 3 40K Dark Heresy RPG books? Yep. What about the Warhammer RPG? Coming soon. Now, that you are working on Games Workshop stuff, will your current and future games start to suck? No. What other GW games will you be making? Lots. Well, we here at D6G are hoping for Warhammer 40K meets Tide of Iron, or maybe Warhammer Fantasy Battle meets Descent, or possibly Gorka Morka meets Golf Mania. Okay, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we wanted to break out the D6G mailbag and talk about the response we've been getting from all of you, our listeners, all 6 of you. Actually, we jest about that, but we really appreciate those of you who took the time to download and check out our show. We're very, very flattered. We've had literally hundreds of downloads. And our pod host, we use podhoster.com. They host over 3,000 podcasts. And as of yesterday, we are in the top 10. Both of our episodes are in the top 10. I believe we are.
That's all you. That certainly is not us.
No, yeah, that's right. That's the listeners. That's you guys out there downloading and checking it out. We really appreciate it. And we wanted to take a little time to go around, the various communities and see what you guys are saying about us. And first of all, let's start with our own, the d6generation@gmail.com email address. That's the best way to get in touch with us. So, Rafe, what did you see in our mailbag this week?
Yes, in our mailbag we have Adam Thomas writing in saying, "Hi, just writing in to say I really enjoyed your podcast. I like the humor and the in-depth analysis of things. The GW versus PP debate was really interesting. And I have to admit I agree with pretty much everything you said. They could easily remove the super luck factor in 40K by using D10s, in my mind. Keep them coming." So thanks, Adam Thomas.
Thank you, Adam. So that was a nice email. We did receive several very positive comments from folks about the podcast.
Absolutely.
We really appreciated that.
And from our D6 Generation podcast website, we have from Spain, Alberto posts, "Nice show, boys, but please try to not shout suddenly." That's my fault. "Some of us are hearing you with earphones, not to speak at the same time. You have international listeners, and some, that's me again, have enough problems with clear, smooth BBC English language to add even more of a handicap. Looking forward to your next cast." We are working on those levels, Alberto, and we're going to try to address that. And I tried my best not to scream that much this time around. So thank you very much for writing.
So when I saw this comment, I have to just talk about this. I saw this comment on and again, Alberto was nice enough to comment on our d6generation.com. You can comment on any of our shows there, and quite a few people did. And again, we got some very nice comments. But Alberto, I just had this picture of, Alberto, idyllic Spain, riding along on his bicycle or moped.
I think you mentioned Barcelona.
Barcelona, right? He's riding along, and he's got his little iPod in his ears happily, and all of a sudden, in his head, he hears, "Wrong!" and veers off the road into the ditch, and the poor guy breaks an axle or something. So.
And I've been to Barcelona, and that would hurt.
That would hurt. So, Alberto, we'll work on that one. Next, from Bolter and Chainsword, we got some interesting stuff. We got some very positive feedback from Bolter and Chainsword. BolterandChainsword.com is a great site, forum, really, for anything about Space Marines. And I got an anonymous message. He wanted to remain nameless for one of our friends over there. And he says, Superb podcast. I'm from England, and I used to work for GW as a store manager, and can safely say you are pretty much spot on with your assessment of the mistakes GW has made. If it helps, here's some more information about GW changes and other aspects. Number 1. After speaking with Jervis at a recent tournament down at Warhammer World, and I believe he's referring to Jervis Johnson, he stated that the 5th edition was not on the radar for the next 6 months. Number 2. GW is now trying to move on recruiting more business-minded individuals to help steer their business. Myself being a project manager and business analyst found this hilarious. It's too late, he says in parentheses. Number 3. Warhammer 40K is moving towards a game that can use in more competitive scenarios. So I guess he means Jervis is trying to make it more competitive. And lastly, Jervis is actually looking at other games for inspiration of good working rule concepts in other systems and companies.
Which is something that we were all hoping they would do.
Right, so that's it sounds really good. However, we can all take time to bash GW and their apparent lack of business acuity. However, find me a system with a background more diverse and involving than Warhammer 40K, and I'll be shocked. It's what we love, and one aspect that has not changed. If anything, it has developed and matured. Keep up with the good work on the podcast. Kind regards, Anonymous. So, I think we all agree about the universe, right,
and
Craig?
that's absolutely. And he's also correct in that they're trying to recruit business-minded individuals. I just learned the other day that one of the new regional managers for down south in the U.S. is a woman who has absolutely no gaming experience whatsoever, but she's doing a great job with her metro area. And she comes actually from the lingerie field.
Wow.
She was a sales manager for lingerie. So kudos for that also.
And we're looking forward to the new Sisters of Battle line coming out next fall.
That's got to be easy on the eyes for gamers.
Yeah. All right, Rafe, so what did you find on Daka Daka?
So, posted on dakadaka.com, we have from Tanker. I like the McLaughlin group, so I get the parody, but the host, in quotation marks, for that segment of the podcast is just way too annoying to listen to and too loud. And the panelists are much too quiet and difficult to hear on that segment as well. I almost gave up on the whole thing before you guys switched to, quote, normal mode. If the MG piece had gone on another minute, I would have given up on the podcast entirely. The remainder of the podcast was just fine, but the audio quality needs improvement overall. Bye-bye.
And I'd like to take a second as that annoying to listen to guy, and I would like to apologize for the annoying element. That's actually pretty much my normal voice. As you can hear, it's very odd sounding. There was a specific reason that we actually looked at the McLaughlin group, which we're now calling Rapid Fire. We kind of look at it as a table of contents for that episode. So if you look at the different issues that we bring up, they actually get addressed over the course of the podcast, except for a couple things that we pull off of the discussion boards, which then inform our later episodes, is the theory. That, for instance, this time around, we actually addressed a couple of the things that we talked about in the first McLaughlin group. And it's tough. Humor is obviously subjective, and we got a lot of positive reviews at Privateer Press, at the forum at Privateer Press in particular. There was an entire thread about this. Just like to shout out to Sheets, Dizzy, and Death Force. You guys got my back. I appreciate it. And Kirov and Head Hungry and Dark Inketo. You guys had some criticisms, and it was all really well put, and we really do appreciate all of the critical analysis. There wasn't any flaming or anything going on, and we really did appreciate the tone that all of the posts, both pro and con, took. So I just wanted to get it out there. We were trying to get a little tongue-in-cheek and try to think of it as a bit of a table of contents, if you will. And it's always easy to fast forward through it. You just can't take it.
Right. And that definitely was the most controversial part of the show.
Yes.
People either loved it or didn't get it. But you know what? We're not dropping it because that's how we roll.
That is how we roll. Like cheap
with it.
Toilet paper
Right.
Across a gravel driveway.
Suck it up and fast forward in minute 4.
Hey, Russ, can I talk about my favorite one?
Sure.
Warseer.com. This is my favorite. This is from Demon King, Northern Ireland. So thanks to all our listeners out there, that's for sure. From the start, I was just going to close down the browser because of the silly voices, but I held in there and realized it was a quite good discussion of both PP and GW. Really liked both parts. Hope you post up the next podcast. I will actually subscribe through iTunes. Say hi to Hollywood for me.
Yeah.
D.
Why did you like that one?
Oh, it's self-explanatory.
He's got his own fan
Right.
club in Ireland.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to pull one now from Michael Jordal, or Jordal at Board Game Geek. I found it pretty interesting, even though I don't play either of the games that you mostly discussed. I used to play Warhammer Fantasy around 4th and 5th edition, and I have demoed Privateer Press's stuff at Gen Con. I also liked the outro. It sounded fairly Andy Rooney-ish. I think you invented a new word there, and I approve.
Yes, it was fairly Andy Rooney-ish.
Fairly Andy
Because
Rooney-ish.
we're trying to be totally Andy Rooney-ish. So we'll take what we can get.
We hit the target somewhere.
And just a couple more shouts out to the folks at DACA. Quite a few people. Lido 2, Savnok, Techi, Grot 6, Jeremy Colbert, Molly, a lot of other folks over there. Gave us some nice comments about the show. And a special shout out to, Yakface, who again is the webmaster over there. Not only did he listen to it and enjoy it, but he actually put us on the front page, a little promo. Really appreciate that. Always very supportive over there, great community. And I have no personal interest in the site.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever. So take that as a may. A couple
And
other
kudos
areas.
too to the PP boards too. The PP forum boards had it going on good.
Yeah, well, a lot of other places. We got talked about a lot of places. Tabletop Gaming News had a little show about a thing about us. We got a lot of comments on that. Very nice comments, as well as some, folks trying to figure out the McLaughlin Group segment. Adeptus Windy City, our friends over in Chicago that run Adepticon, had some nice comments from them. And of course, Privateer Press had a great, lot of comments. And what's nice about them was they were, a couple of the guys from the New England Privateers commented on the show. They wanted us to come check them out sometime. They're really local. We should check them out. A lot of folks over there said hi. So we really appreciate, again, all the positive reactions and all the positive comments from the community. And if you want to get in touch with us, the best way to make sure we listen to you is to send an email to the d6generation@gmail.com or make a comment on our website at www.d6generation.com.
And thank you all. And I again, specifically because of something that's about to happen, I want to say that the tone of all the posts was really positive, and we all were kind of bracing ourselves for some flame, and everybody out there knows that the internet can get a bit brutal, but you guys were all really supportive and constructive with your criticism, and I think we all three of us really want to say that we appreciated that.
So as you heard from our mailbag, we'd like to get you, the community, more involved in our podcast. So this week we're going to introduce a new concept called You Pick the Segment. Now, Rafe has been really excited to really get online and talk to you guys about the wonder that is truly Lord of the Rings Online and MMOs in general, right, Rafe?
Yes, I can't wait.
Right. So Rafe would like to do a nice long segment. Now, Craig and I have
Some of us doubt.
our doubts that this segment would really be as fascinating as Rafe would have us
Mainly
believe.
from the pie point of view.
And as you heard in episode 1, mostly what Rafe seems to do in this game is make pies. So whenever we see him after a gaming night, is to make it while I was up late making pies. So what we want to do is this. If you want to hear Rafe have a nice long 20-minute segment on why MMOs are cool and why Lord of the Rings is a great one.
And we promise that we'll be respectful.
And we'll be reasonably respectful of him.
Reasonably respectful?
Within reason.
Oh, okay, cool. That's even better.
Yes. Send an email to the d6generation@gmail.com and make sure the subject line says, I love pies. And then in the body of your message, include your name and your email. If you would rather not have
Favorite website.
and your name and your favorite website,
Or
yes,
discussion forum.
or discussion forum, right, wherever you think is the cool place to hang out for you and your gaming group. If you think Rafe should not have a long 20-minute segment on MMOs, send us an email to the d6generation@gmail.com, but in the subject have I hate pies, and again include your name and your favorite website in the body. What we'll do is if Rafe gets the most votes for I love pies, he will get a 20-minute segment. And if the most votes come for I hate pies, he will get a 5-minute segment. And as an added bonus, we're going to read off the names and favorite websites of the first 5 people to respond to us via email on this one in the next show.
Which is actually 3 people, because Russ and I have already posted I Hate Pies to our own website.
Right. So the first 5 that are not us.
Oh, okay.
What about the disclaimer in the end that you guys can't vote?
Right, we can't vote more than 3 times.
Yes.
More than 3.
I think that's it. Well, no, we'll go the Texas route. Neither one of us can vote more than twice.
Right. So,
Nice.
so Rafe, in the interest of fairness, Rafe, we're now going to give Rafe 30 seconds to make his pitch as to why you should email us with I love pies.
I believe salesmen call this the elevator pitch.
Right.
You're in an elevator between floors. You've got 30 seconds. Go.
So Rafe, go.
I've got it. All right, listeners out there. This is not going to be a segment on me in the game. That's Snoozeville. This is going to be about what is an MMO, why is it exciting, because I was an older gamer and I was very intimidated to play. So that's it. It's just going to be my experiences and why I find it so fun and why I think you guys out there will too.
Wow, that was less than 30 seconds. Nice elevator
Done.
pitch.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
if you think that's a great idea, send an I love pies to the D6generation@gmail.com. If you don't like it, send I hate pies to D6generation@gmail.com. And if you're one of the first 5 to do so, we'll read your name and favorite website on the air. Thanks a lot for listening.
By the way, since we got Ramblin' Russ, that's the D6generation@gmail.com.
Right.
What he said.
Right, he said. Thanks, everyone. But did you ever notice?
Did you ever notice that some people just can't be polite on discussion boards? There can't be that many cretins in the world, or there would be more road rage killings and random seeming acts of violence on the evening news. We all agree to abide by certain rules of daily interaction in the real world, and by and large, society crawls along well enough. But when you get some people behind a keyboard, hiding behind a high-res avatar and a cliché action movie handle, for some reason the freaks come out to play. Honest disagreements escalate to the level of jihad. A simple misstatement is seized upon like a gazelle in the jaws of a lion and shaken and savaged until, pages and pages of content later, no one even remembers what the original poster might have meant. And that's not even looking too closely at the true trolls, the internet version of the vicious, grinning sociopath who lurks in the shadows waiting for an unsuspecting post to wander by, wide-eyed and innocent, and then bang! Every user agreement point gets violated in a single massive flame fest, and the poor little question never even gets addressed. So why is it that some people find it difficult to carry on a reasoned argument online? Is it like the satellite radio ad says, and there's just those nerds out there that have gone bad, given too many wedgies and purple nurples in high school, and now they're going to take it out on the rest of us before the good nerds can save the day? And what is a purple nurple anyway? Psychologists would tell you that this is akin to the mob mentality. When a person is safely enclosed in the anonymity of a group, or in this case a discussion board, their true darker personality emerges. It's why Klansmen wear hoods and the savage boys of the Lord of the Flies painted their faces. When there's no danger of immediate personal consequences for your actions, some people feel free to let their inner half-wit emerge. In the end, we really just have to hope for the best, and trust to our fellow internet denizens that the conventions of positive online social interaction will be followed, when we all try to keep in mind the basic goodness of intentions that we hope to find in others, we'll all be better off. Because someday they're going to invent a way to track you down and kill you through your computer, and by then, we all best be better behaved. Good night.
Congratulations! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at the D6generation@gmail.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA Discussions Forum on DACADACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thank you for listening and happy gaming. See you again in 2 weeks.